Tiamat, chromatic dragon queen of the Forgotten Realm.
Alduin, world-eating dragon god of Tamriel.
Perhaps no creature across all of fantasy has become as emblematic of the genre as the dragon. And these two betrayed and long-thought defeated gods are among the most mighty worms that a mortal could ever fear, until they return to wreak havoc on the world of man once more.
You already know who we are.
And we're here to research their strengths, speed, talents, and tech to find out who would win. Breathe, dragons. Sing of the first world, forged out of chaos and painted with beauty.
Sing of Bahamut, the platinum, molding the shape of the mountains and rivers.
Sing too of chromatic Tiamat, painting all over the infinite canvas.
Partnered they woke in the darkness. Partnered they labored in acts of creation.
This reading comes from Elegy for the First World, an ancient sacred poem passed down through generations of dragonkind across untold millennia.
And within these texts lay the origins of the first and mightiest of all dragons, the Platinum Bahamut and the Chromatic Tiamat,
who worked to create a sprawling masterpiece for their own creations to inhabit. Thus would be born the material plane.
But this act of creation would catch the eyes of the gods, both above and below, who envied the land of dragons. But the gods are mature, stable, and understanding individuals. Oh, who am I kidding? They declared war and invaded.
While Bahamut and Tiamat had power that rivaled the gods themselves, they could not hold the line forever. Bahamut was the first to fall, subdued and imprisoned, while Tiamat fought desperately to preserve their creation. But even she, in all her rage and wrath, would be cast down into the pits of hell for defying the gods.
And so, the first world was transformed, and became home to sprawling kingdoms of elves, dwarves, and men alike. Bahamut would one day return on a journey to understand this new world, and would become embraced by the gods as one of their own, but Tiamat's fury never simmered.
Trapped for eons in her exile in Avernus, the first layer of hell, she wished nothing more than to escape her captors and burn the realm of the gods down, to restore the proper promised land of dragonkind that her and her traitorous brother had brought into being.
Bahamut was a weak fool to side with the gods, she thought, and so it would fall to her to reclaim the world for her chromatic children, and destroy the treacherous metallic spawn of Bahamut.
There has been much debate on what Tiamat's true nature is. Whether she be the apex of her kind, a demigod, or even the archdevil ruler of her own prison of Avernus. But the truth is, she was something much greater.
She was a deity, as much of one as Bahamut or any other one of her sworn enemies were. The goddess of chromatic dragons, to be precise. Chromatic dragons are, for lack of a better term, the bad guys. The ones who face off against brave knights and menace kingdoms and all the fairy tales you know.
While their hosts were innumerable, they primarily came in 5 varieties. Fire-breathing red dragons, lightning-wielding blue dragons, poison-spewing green dragons, ice-spraying white dragons, and acid-belching black dragons.
And Tiamat has the powers of, well, all of them. Hence the 5 heads, each breathes a different element. And they can of course do more than just breathe magic at people. Each one can bite with tremendous power, and her claws are just as deadly, along with her poison-tipped tail stinger. And obviously, those wings aren't just for show.
This is normally the part where we'd segue into just how fast those wings can carry her, but measuring the speed of gods with simple numbers is frankly asinine. Even lesser beings can cross infinite distances in literally no time, brute force their way through stopped time, or traverse the infinite ocean of time itself.
That's a lot of time. But yeah, Tiamat and her godly compadres should be way above silly things like measurements when it comes to their true attributes. In fact, most of the time, when the books even give stat blocks for her, you're probably looking at an avatar of a weakened aspect.
So powerful is Tiamat's true form that the first world would be fragmented and reformed into infinite realities. A multiverse of countless timelines born from just the aftermath of her co-creation.
You would think with all this power, escaping hell would be a sin, but turns out she was stuck in there for good. Eon after eon, scheme after scheme, it all come up short. She's gotten a bit desperate for her shot.
While those schemes started with your typical cults and whatnot, she's gotten creative over the years. Such as when a new pantheon was forming and she sent a lesser three-headed avatar of herself to infiltrate their ranks, pass itself off as one of them, and then petition them to be more evil so they could let Tiamat out.
Which Bahamut decided to stop by doing the exact same thing, turning this into some Scooby-Doo-esque plot of dragon gods. Or when Asmodeus, literal Satan himself, gave her rulership of Avernus only for her to completely suck at governance and run the place to the ground.
That alone wouldn't be that out there, but Asmodeus, again, literal Satan, felt so bad for her and could tell she was trying her best that he just let her stay around, albeit not in a position of power. Hell, he later offered her a second chance, and she turned it down because she didn't want to crash the car again and disappoint him.
Well, I guess if you hate the gods, Archdevils seem like as good an ally as any. Though, being a god gives her a whole host of divine powers. She can manifest avatars with portions of her power, automatically be informed on any dragon-related topics, teleport, change her size, reproduce sounds, fire godly blasts of energy that can't be blocked, create barriers, empower her strikes to annihilate enemies, regenerate, control reality with Avernus, and seal it off from dimensional travel, and of course, use magic.
Any magic, in fact. The gods can recreate any spell available to mortals with just idle thought, which gives her access to an unfathomable variety of options, though she does have her favorites: invisibility, summoning, time stops, transmutation, telekinesis, energy draining, illusions, and several options for entrapping or destroying an enemy's soul.
She can utter divine words that cripple her enemies with their splendor, and as goddess of chromatic dragons, she can also seize control of any evil dragon she chooses. To be clear, she's not mind controlling them or anything, though she can do that too. It's more like she's physically puppeteering them, like Magneto, if Magneto could only control dragons. Dragnito, if you would.
Tiamat's antics would get to a point where whole kingdoms would begin blaming her for literally everything that went wrong in their lives. Lost the keys? Tiamat. Wheel fell off? Tiamat. Evil book driving you mad? Okay, that was probably Vecna, but still.
Not like anyone could do much. Do you have any idea how hard it is to kill a god? Unless you have some insane artifact or an even greater god than them, good luck. They can power through any kind of damage: banishment or sealing, mental attacks, soul attacks, transmutation, sleeper stun inducement, power draining, or even just straight up death inducement itself.
There's a reason people had to settle for just imprisoning her. Even if you found some way to kill her, she'll reform within the next few months, good as new. Even effects that erase her very concept or scrub her from time itself don't cut it.
Not surprising when the gods are their own concepts, made from pure thoughts and ideals. Even if all else fails, she can use legendary resistances.
A supernatural ability possessed by only the greatest creatures, legendary resistance can be called on so many times in a given day, generally 3, to automatically resist any effect targeting you, regardless of its potency.
Yeah, and it's the most bullshit mechanic in the game. Fuck you, dude. I rolled max damage on a fireball and they got a 2. What do you mean they get to go nuh-uh?
Now, in fairness, being a greater god than her doesn't necessarily require raw power, as lesser gods have bested their superiors before. Rather, it's about belief. The number of people who believe in her is what fuels her power, and should that belief be taken from her, she will weaken exponentially. Likewise, those with more believers than her can put her on the back foot, as greater gods can always bypass the immunities and defenses of the ones below them, regardless of if your definition relies on power or belief.
So, all that being said, did she ever actually get out of hell?
Once? Pretty recently, actually. After she found out Asmodeus had been conspiring against her, and she organized her cult to revive her.
Wait, so what was stopping her from doing that before? Did she just, not want to abandon her bestie, Satan?
The planes may never know. Not like it matters, given her weakened state was pushed back down basically immediately upon emerging.
And so, as we speak, she's back where she always is. in the first layer of hell, plotting and biding her time, waiting for the day her escape will be made manifest. The day where the false land of the gods will burn, and with her brother cast aside, she will take her throne again as the true queen of dragonkind, and the first world will come to be once more under her solitary rule. So bow before your queen, and bow before your god.
And the scrolls have foretold of black wings in the cold, that when brothers wage war, come unfurled.
Alduin, bane of kings, ancient shadow unbound, with a hunger to swallow the world.
Thus sings the song of the Dragonborn, and thus is the prophecy of Alduin, firstborn of Akatosh.
Long ago, the progenitor god of the dragons, Akatosh, set into motion the very cosmos themselves, creating the land known as Tamriel, the world known as Nirn, and the universe known as Mundus. It was through Akatosh that deific dragons like Alduin would come to life, often with a grand purpose befitting of their station.
For Alduin, he would become the World Eater, destined to literally devour the world, perhaps even time itself, in order to facilitate the cycle of existence's recreation, these cycles being known as Kalpas.
Now, Tamriel is a world of fantastical wonder. Emperors are assassinated every other week, portals to hell randomly open up on your commute to work, and an ambiguously immortal cat guy searches for utensils on the side of the road every single day. However, even in a land filled with trolls and goblins alike, it was the dragons that truly struck fear into the hearts of men.
Needless to say, Alduin's apocalyptic nature, along with the terror of the dragons themselves, tended to overshadow any perceivable benefits to restarting the universe, like a terrible comic book movie desperately trying to set the stage for a new cinematic era. As such, Alduin would become something of a deviant of the holy Akatosh, feared by the Nords of Skyrim rather than be worshipped.
Can you really blame them? The universe getting on and off again isn't exactly something that gives you warm fuzzies, and this is far from Alduin's first time doing this. Truth is, the universe has come and gone a quite literally innumerable number of times, with Alduin remembering every last one of them.
It was only a matter of time, of course, until he grew weary of the never-ending, repeating loop he found himself in. Eventually, Alduin desired more. Tired of his arduous, perhaps even righteous duty in a sense, the World Eater set his sights on total domination of Mundus, the universe itself.
And so, Alduin and his draconic followers waged war on creation, seeking to break the cycle of rebirth entirely. Bad news for creation, because Alduin and his gang are stupid powerful.
Devouring the universe is an even more impressive feat than you might first think. The planet Nirn, and therefore Mundus, exists in a multiversal structure contained within the expanse of Oblivion.
To give an idea how insane this world is, shadows here aren't just an absence of light, but rather reflections of all possible worlds. A guy named Azra Nightwielder was able to actually meld all possible versions of himself across all existence into one entity by using these same shadows.
Essentially, Mundus refers to an infinite multiverse, and Alduin's 9 to 5 is devouring it over and over and over again. And as if that wasn't enough, he wielded the power inherent in all dragons, the Thum, or shouts.
Su'um is a powerful branch of magic, focused on verbal spoken power. By speaking certain incantations, dragons and their kin can incur the wrath of various ethereal abilities, ranging from the self-explanatory unrelenting force to the mind-manipulating bend will.
Learning a shout, let alone using it, is far more advanced than just speaking its words. To even attempt using one, the speaker must comprehend and encompass the very nature of that which they are speaking, taking all of its essence and concept into their very soul before letting out their cry.
And Alduin's shown mastery of several of them. He can breathe fire and frost, blast out the aforementioned unrelenting force, summon meteors, resurrect the dead, and create a deadly mist that robs those exposed to it of their souls.
In fact, he was able to spread that mist across the endless realm of Aetherius, which is the same place he can call meteors from an infinite distance away. Makes sense he'd have those unfathomable levels of speed when his whole thing is devouring infinities.
And because nothing can ever be simple, being eaten by him isn't just your typical digestive affair. Rather, you and anything else in his gullet gets wiped out of existence entirely, and the more he eats, the bigger he gets. Big enough to cover whole countries and fit bones up his nose.
He actually eats time itself, like when he ate the literal time of the entire population of Skyrim, turning fully grown adults into children.
Sorry, I'm still just looking at these shouts, and there's a lot. While he hasn't personally shown usage of all of them, given he's lived for, well, forever, we can assume he has all the powers available to his lesser kin.
Aura Whisper can detect nearby presences, Soul Tear can directly rip out someone's soul, become ethereal, drain vitality, slow time, bend will. Well, okay, a lot of these do what they say on the can.
So, how did the ancient Nords of Skyrim even defeat him? Obviously they won the war, given Skyrim's still around, right?
Well, they won the war, but they didn't necessarily beat him. Rather, they cast him into the future, basically just making him someone else's problem. This was possible thanks to the aid of Paarthurnax, Alduin's trusted friend and lieutenant who turned against the dragon god to stop his tyranny. Whether or not that absolves him of his war crimes as Alduin's right-hand worm, we'll let you decide that.
Alduin would emerge in the future where people had basically forgotten about the dragons altogether, regarding them as just mere fairy tales, with almost all traces of their worship gone entirely. In fact, some early reports of his return were brushed off as just mad ramblings. It'd be like if people began saying Thanos was attacking.
Because of this, the world was ill-prepared for Alduin's return, and he would resume where he left off, seeking to wipe the slate clean one final time and rule alongside his brethren. But one hero would emerge, a champion of legend who would stop him, the one they call the Dragonborn.
So did the Dragonborn and World Eater do battle, their epic clash set to the backdrop of a nation warring within itself. With the help of the wise old Greybeards, the Dragonborn grew strong enough to oppose Alduin, taking their battle to the Nordic afterlife of Sovngarde for their final duel.
Ultimately, Alduin was defeated, his invulnerability stripped away, and his body reduced to ashes in the wind. Even so, this is not the end of Alduin, for as long as his soul remains intact, he could very well return someday.
Alduin isn't really bound by physics, or logic for that matter. He was so unkillable that he only lost when the concept of mortality was imposed onto him by force, and up until then, he was totally invulnerable to any and all attacks thrown at him.
Not entirely surprising. Alduin would need to be able to survive actually consuming an absurdly massive cosmological structure for basically all eternity. However, there is perhaps more to Alduin's invulnerability than just not taking damage. As a god, Alduin can be construed to possess many of the same physical and conceptual attributes of other deities.
For instance, even Daedra, basically demons, who are of lesser cosmological stature than Alduin, predate concepts as a whole, and in fact inspired what those concepts would later be defined as. Akatos, of whom Alduin is conceived and intrinsically linked to, created causality, space and time, and Alduin can exist without these concepts between kalpas.
There are even mortals who have attained true immortality and become platonic ideals, or straight-up abstract disembodied entities. Effectively, in truth, it's not so much that Alduin has some arbitrary physical immunity to damage, so much as he just doesn't abide by the same rules of reality as everyone else. Without specifically, forcefully imposing concepts onto Alduin like Dragonrend did, he's simply impossible to harm through conventional means from lesser beings.
Though, even if they can't kill him for good, beings on par with him can still mess him up, like when he fought the warrior god Shor. But that doesn't mean much. He can come back from basically anything short of his soul being annihilated, something that even the Dragonborn couldn't do.
Makes sense, given Alduin should at minimum have the same sort of defenses that the Dragonborn does, and they were able to resist having their soul yoinked out by the Soul Cairn, and having their mind controlled by fellow Dragonborn Mirak using Bend Will on them.
But, one way or another, the people of Skyrim, nope, all of Mundus, could celebrate. For Alduin had been vanquished and would menace them no longer.
With his dreams of conquest halted, perhaps Alduin will return to his duty as the World Eater, resetting the cycle of life and time itself. all the wiser to the mortal and dragonborn men who opposed his great ambitions before. Or perhaps he will break the cycle once again, unrelenting until all bow before their god.
You cannot prevail against me. I will outlast you, mortal.
Okay, the fighters are ready, the numbers are crunched, and it's time to run this!
Let's get ready for a deathmatch!
Amativ di Lavu. Forward, my legion. Wipe this world anew and claim the souls they ignorantly hoard. Fear, weaklings. You dare such insolence in the face of your end? Show your meager self.
You call yourself a dragon? You're no child of mine. I have seen wormlings born from broods countless generations from my first, with the greater spark of divinity within them.
Dovah. I am firstborn of Akatosh, and you should be wise to hold your tongues before I tear them out.
Come then! Break your fangs upon my body, and be cast down forevermore into Beator.
Your soul! Salo, like all creation, you are reduced to dust in the winds of this place.
I'm sorry. Did you think the dragon was me?
Roda! You were a fool to try claiming the Thum for yourself. You could never hope to know its power. Weaklings indeed. I know not what layer of oblivion we are. But we are far from your realm, false Dovah.
Yes. Yes! After all these eons, I am unbound!
Your soul is mine, chromatic usurper.
I usurp no one! I am the betrayed, and I will not let my righteous claim be forsaken by the likes of you! Will bow!
I see now. All your splendor. It is not your own. You require them, the mortals, and their superstitions.
What have you done? My creation! My children!
You are no god to rely on mere mortals for your power, false Dovah! And that weakness shall be your undoing. Here at both the start and the end, obey your master! Gol Hadol! world of Dovah will be built on your bones. I will be forgotten as nothing more than an afterthought of my legendary reign.
The only legend that shall survive this day is me!
Burn the world to ashes, ruling the sinners.
My faithful, my king, they are not my weakness! Worship is the greatest strength of all gods, and you are no god!
These course! It cannot be!
Listen and listen well, World Eater, for I will not speak again. I know of you, and all your chaos. You are no spawn of mine. And for the fate of all my creation, all of my children, I unmake thee. Now and forever.
See, what I tell ya? Bullshit ability!
With beings as storied as these two, this fight was incredibly complicated to figure out. But once all the pieces were in play, a winner became apparent. To highlight why, let's look at their stats, abilities, and experience.
To kick it off, it's no secret Alduin's been doing this way longer than Tiamat. So, Tiamat predates time, but, well, so does Alduin.
And of course, Alduin has been around since not just the start of time, but the start of countless times, having lived through innumerable Kalpas, all of which he's destroyed.
Tiamat, meanwhile, has spent her already much sort of existence mostly stuck in a cave in hell doing Team Rocket shenanigans.
All this to say, Alduin holds a massive edge over Tiamat when it comes to their actual experience, both in general and using their abilities.
But speaking of, let's talk about those abilities.
This part's actually fairly interesting, but not much of a competition. Both of them have shown the capabilities to use a selection of spells and shouts respectively, but in theory should have access to many more.
Unfortunately for Alduin, that doesn't mean much. Whether or not you compare their smaller list or their full hypothetical arsenals, Tiamat blows Alduin out of the water. With their full lists, basically anything Alduin can do, Tiamat has multiple better versions of, and then hundreds of things on top of that. Even with their limited lists, that sentiment holds true, and Tiamat's knowledge on everything dragon-related would keep her in the loop about Alduin.
Both could control souls, Tiamat's normal breath weapons could match Alduin's elemental shouts, and while Alduin could hypothetically slow time, only Tiamat could outright stop it. Even Bend Will is surpassed by Tiamat's much more fundamental manipulation of dragonkind as a whole. Whether or not you limit them to their staples or let them access their wider arsenals, Tiamat comfortably ties up the score.
Finally, the big one. Let's talk about their raw physical attributes. While both of these franchises and cosmologies are overwhelmingly complicated, both of them can actually achieve about equal levels of power. Alduin's able to devour the Kalpa, which contains infinite realities, and Tiamat co-created the first world, which was shadowed into infinite realities.
Now, let's quickly address the elephant in the room to anyone who's knowledgeable about these characters. Even these are, simply put, very low ends for two very cosmic entities. But the truth is, regardless of leeway, they would continue to just about match each other every step of the way.
Kalpas have higher spatial dimensions, so does the material plane. Alduin can potentially scale beyond dimensions altogether. That one's a little shakier, but even so, Tiamat can as well, and much more concretely if it comes down to it, via upscaling things like the Topaz Crusader affecting the Far Realm.
But we are, of course, beginning to veer off into things that distract from the core point here, since both their most impressive direct feats and more fringe arguments let them go blow for blow, and both, of course, can reach incalculable degrees of speed. It's simplest to just call it a draw here.
Meaning it's... Wait, hang on, doesn't that indicate a tie? How'd Tiamat win?
Well, that's because there's still something missing. Something important and wholly unique in comparison to other matchups of this caliber. After all, these aren't just your average, everyday flying lizards, they're gods, figures spoken of by men in equal parts fear, but also reverence and worship. And fitting of that moniker is the final piece of the puzzle. Let's talk about their divinity.
Tiamat has a whole laundry list of immunities that encompass basically anything Alduin could throw at her. But at the same time, if Tiamat had no surefire way to put Alduin down, the fight could theoretically spiral forever. And given the only way to do that is to put down Alduin's soul, something which he's resisted before, that's easier said than done.
Meanwhile, if Alduin proved a superior deity, he'd be able to overtax Tiamat's own resistances and make sure she stays dead. So that leaves us with $2 million questions. Who's the greater god here, and could Tiamat ensure Alduin was gone even if she was?
Really, this is just one question, and Tiamat has a perfect answer to it. Since we've already established the pair could trade blows forever in power, you might assume the pair are equal on the totem pole of gods. But remember the metric for status Tiamat works off of: belief.
While on the surface they might initially seem comparable in this regard, looking a bit deeper tells a very different story.
When he returned to Tamriel, nobody thought of Alduin as anything more than an old myth. At least, not enough people to put him above the sort of clout Tiamat has, like, having an entire kingdom blame her for every single thing going wrong in their day-to-day lives.
Even at his prime of renown, Alduin's mortal followers never really got past fringe cult status, and the inhospitable climate of Skyrim leading to a lower population in general means Alduin, especially as an entity sometimes not even considered a full-fledged god by the Nords, could not stack up to Tiamat in that regard. All that faith would ensure Alduin would have no way to put Tiamat down for good, but how exactly does this let Tiamat keep Alduin dead? Well, it's the same principle, just reversed.
As it turns out, Alduin's physiology is actually very similar to that of the D&D gods. Both are made of ideals, both embody concepts, and both are basically unkillable at the hands of, anything.
And, similarly, both resist having their soul tampered with on a fundamental, absolute level. But remember, all these immunities can be bypassed by superior gods.
Effectively, Tiamat can not only kill, but manipulate the souls of any gods below her on the ranking, who, just like Alduin, can normally resist all that and more. And because of Tiamat's superior divinity, Alduin's normal defenses would not be able to hold up to her potency, just like any other god she outranks.
Alduin was an unrelenting, cosmically devastating force, well deserving of the mantle of World Eater. But Tiamat's equally mighty power, onslaught of magic, and quantifiably greater godhood was enough to leave the Devourer devoured in kind.
Good thing, too. We didn't want that fight to drag on. Even if Alduin held his own advantages, they wouldn't let him scalp a win, and the Chromatic Queens just Tiamated a lot more.
This match's winner is Tiamat.
Say it once, say it twice, learn down the charm. Yes, then don't wait another minute. Pick up your phone and call the professor.